Hello friends, welcome to step 6 of the WinterFrost Mystery Quilt Along. So today we're going to be utilizing from our step 4 our units which as per your pattern were figure 3, 4, 5, and 6 from step 4. And then from the background fabrics that we cut during step 1, we are going to pull our 1 3/4 inch squares. We're going to use these as well. Okay, so we're going to follow the pattern, but I'm going to walk you through it verbally here. I'm going to lay out the 3 units that we're going to make. I'm going to probably lay all 3 of them out. They're all identical, so it shouldn't be too difficult. But here is a figure 3, and I'm going to put our little square right there. Then we're going to have a figure 5, a figure 4 will be there, and then the figure 6 will be there. Okay, so that's how it will come together. Figure 3, figure 5, figure 4, figure 6. Okay, we're going to make 3 of these. So I'm going to lay out all 3 of mine so that I get the placement correct, and then I'm going to walk you through how to actually piece them. Okay, so like I said, I've laid out all of my pieces so that I'm ready to sew and I don't get the placement confused. So again, follow along with your pattern, but also if you want, you can take a screenshot of this so that you have it to reference. So again, just to reiterate, these are our 1 3/4 background squares, figure 3, figure 5, figure 4, and figure 6 from our step 4. Let's go to the machine. Okay, so our first step here is we are going to take our figure 3 unit and our square, and we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam, but we're going to do what's called partial piecing. So what's going to happen here is, again, as per your pattern, you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam just halfway down this particular seam. Okay, so we're going to go about halfway down that square there. Okay, here's my thread cutter and just snip that. I'm going to do the other 2 units like this at the same time. As per the pattern, we are going to, I'm going to set my seam first. It doesn't say that in the pattern, but I do like to set the seam first. Like so. And again, as per your pattern, figure 10, you are going to press this seam allowance that way, so towards the larger unit. I'm sorry, you can't even see that. Like so. Okay. So press that seam allowance that away. Looks a bit awkward, but I'm sure it'll all make sense. And let's continue and do the same with the other 2 units. Okay, our next step is going to be to take our figure 5, and we're going to sew this along the top of this unit like so, okay, with a nice scant 1/4 inch seam. I'm just going to put a couple of pins along this seam, because with this seam being partially open, I'm finding I'm getting like this divot happening along this side. And again, when we're putting multiple pieces together, if one thing is slightly off, by the time we get around to the final piece of this unit, it could affect the overall block. Okay, so I know it seems like overkill, but better precise now than having to pull it apart later. That really is overkill with that many pins. Anyway, let's go. Okay, so there we go, just like that. We've got 3, the center, and the 5. I'm going to repeat with the other 2. Okay, so we've sewn together our 3 units here. And as per the pattern, it says figure 11, we are going to press the seam that we just sewed, we're going to press it up towards the 5 unit. Okay, we're going to press it upwards. So again, just set our seams, and we're going to press this upwards. And there we have our 3 units. As per figure 11, again, this seam will be pressed upwards. Let's go to the next step. Okay, next up, we're going to take our figure 4 unit, and we are going to sew it with a nice scant 1/4 inch seam, just like so. Pin along this short seam just to make sure everything stays in place. Okay, now that we stitched those seams, we are going to, as per the figure 12, we are going to press this seam that we just sewed that way. Okay, so again, set your seam and press the seam that way. Flip it over, make sure it's good. And we will do the same with our other units. 1, 2, 3. Okay, last step. So we're going to take our number 6, our figure 6 unit, and we are going to sew the seam right here. Now here's where our partial seaming comes into play. We are going to move the figure 3 unit out of the way while we sew this seam here. Okay, so again, move this unit here out of the way. Excuse me. And sew your scant 1/4 inch seam there. Again, I'm going to pin along this seam so that everything stays in place. Okay, so we have sewn our seam here. And actually the figure 13 does not show this, but what we are going to do is we are going to set our seam and we are going to press the seam allowance towards the figure 6. Okay, I'm just going to flip this around. So here's our figure 6 that we just sewed that seam there, and we are going to press the seam allowance towards it. Just like so. And we'll flip it over, and there's your seam right there. Okay. Repeat with all 3 blocks. Okay, final step. Now we are going to now just flip this here, and we are going to close up this final seam. Again, I'm going to pin it up to avoid anything shifting and for our seam allowance to be uneven. And I'm going to do that with all 3 of our units. So we've stitched up the final seam there on our block, and again, there's no pressing instructions for this final seam, but suffice it to say it's probably logical that again it's going to be facing in that direction as all of the other seams have done, and that way it's lying nice and flat. We give it a final press. So one last thing, now that we're done piecing and pressing our blocks, I'm going to give my blocks just a little spritz and press with some best press, just because this block has a ton of seams and I just want it to lay nice and flat and not have any stretch or distortion when we move on to the next step, whatever that might be, piecing this together with something else. So again, just gonna grab my best press, a little spritz, little press, and then we will be done for this week. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you soon.